Tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton.
The system rejecting you is such a blessing. And we never experience it that way. We experience it as pain and confirmation that we're not worthy and don't have merit and all those the imposter syndrome things that we all walk around. But how wonderful it has been for me in the rejection of it all throughout the process. And what's left is so beautiful. I was just speaking to the crowd and I was like, the moment that everything gets burned off, and all of it, the rejection and everything, and there's no way to succeed in the system as you see it, the next thought you have is so beautiful.
What's the experience for you watching one of your films with an audience? How is it different than watching it yourself?
Well, when I'm making it, I am very much kind of like that little kid that's going, oh, they're going to love that, and that's going to titillate them, and then they're going to laugh at that, and then they're going to gasp at that, and oh, they're going to think this, and then I'll go do this. And then when I'm watching it, to be honest, it's more of a torturous experience because, I'm so hyper raw, like a nerve, that anyone rustling, anyone reaching for a drink in the third row is drinking, let alone going to the bathroom, getting up and going to the bathroom, which would just basically gut me. So, and whispering and this, all the things that are humanity, the messiness of it all feels very, painful, very, very painful. And so, again, I guess in each one of those, I'm just so raw. Like when I'm directing and when I'm watching a movie, I'm very open. So people always laugh at me when I'm watching something being shot because my body's reacting, and so I'm making faces and I'm reacting. I'm not distant from it. I'm not an observer. I'm totally connected in an umbilical cord, and the same thing happens in the movie. But when I'm watching my movie with an audience, it's just too sensitive.
Are you ever surprised by reactions?
Always. Yeah, always. They have a intuitive understanding of the bone structure of a story. It just happened. They know it, and immediately they understand it, or what it thinks it's doing. And when they reject something, it's related to this bone structure thing. And, I tend to think of it as a kind of a pyramid of elements. And the first element is the bone structure of a story. And we might get excited about level 4 of the pyramid and going, oh, whoa, we're going to do this thing all in, at the beach, and it's going to do this, and I can do this cinema. You're talking about level 4. You didn't do level 1 of the pyramid yet, which is the structure. Then if you make that error, it's a humility thing, first of all, to start at the bone structure, the skeleton of it.
Describe the bone structure.
So the bone structure, guy meets girl, falls in love, she's with somebody else, the bone structure, guy gets, and then ultimately.
Would the bone structure happen in one page?
The bone structure is, when someone says, oh, well, that scene was slow, right? When they say something like that, that means they don't know where they are in the story. That's what slow means. I don't know where I am in the story. And that's
so it doesn't have to do with the scene itself.
No.
It has to do with where we are in the story.
Yeah.
And whether we're advancing the story in that moment.
Yeah, because they intuitively, they're geniuses at understanding this. And so and that's all they see. They see an X-ray vision of the story, past the beautiful production design, past everything, past the casting, everything. And they're just feeling this skeleton of the thing. And
it's so interesting.
It is. And when
I never heard it described this way before, so it's really fascinating.
Oh, and what ends up happening is you as an author can become resentful of this if you don't understand it. And so you find that you can have disdain for the audience, which is, I did level 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 so well, you idiots. And they're like, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Where's level 1? And it's a fascinating thing. It's because we're always in the present, and we're always in the past, and we're always in the future. as they're watching a story, they can't help when if you introduce a kind of a war hero coming home to a mafia family and he's the innocent, and he's introducing his girlfriend to this family, we're with the innocent learning about the family, but already something has happened, which is there's one family member that's not in the business. So the story structure has begun in The Godfather. And so it's beginning. And then ultimately he will be the biggest and greatest Godfather. It's just satisfying, incredible. Even if I'm not aware, I'm so titillated by the bone structure of it. And so like that, in that example, which I love, The Godfather, they did everything on the pyramid, but Mario Puzo started us with the skeleton, which is the innocent that becomes powerful and dark, and don't mess with me. Don't push me too far because I'll become this thing.
So now, based on that, do you always start with the bone structure?
Wow. So you can't think your way. I mean, a lot of executives do believe you can, and for me, I don't want to think my way to it. So I have to kind of open up to the subconscious and the universe that it should just fall into place. Like the last movie, it's kind of a dad and a daughter going, to a concert. They realize there's a trap for a serial killer. And then you let in that he's the serial killer, the father. Then I'm like, the bone structure starts taking off of like, and it's a beautiful bone structure for me because it's like, the audience is like now in the shoes of the antagonist. Now, where does that go? Because now we have a new bone structure. So it's, for me, the excitement is honoring what I said to you, the pyramid, and inventing new bone structure.
So the bone structure, it's not familiar because bone structures are so similar from movie to movie. You're not saying that.
I'm not saying that, but there's an inevitability of the audience trying to
make sense of it.
Yeah, make sense of where they are in the story. And if they give up and now they're detached, that's a bad thing. You want that one-to-one with the character, that sinus curve of that we're in sync with the character. You could take it anywhere, but underneath it, And so some people, like, for example, like, I don't know, pick any movie like that's, in the old days, like, for example, like, the bone structure of like The Exorcist is so interesting. You start out with in Iraq, and then you come to a little girl's room in Georgetown, and then you build it slowly. Something's wrong in the house. Something's wrong with the little girl, and the mom's an actress and totally ill-equipped to handle this, but she's a mom, and we'll fight. And then the story of the priests, and then, an older priest who's fought the devil, and then a younger one who doesn't quite believe. And it's again set up for a beautiful bone structure to happen there. You can feel it growing. And yet you and I have never seen that before. Yeah. But it's so strong, it knows itself, And then even at the ending of The Exorcist, of how he thwarts it and gets the girl to save the girl, is so unexpected and beautiful, but inevitable from the bone structure.
So would you say if the film knows itself, then the audience can get it?
You're getting very close to this sublime thing that we're dancing around, that there is this, it's like whatever, the veining on a leaf, or, something in nature that's just perfect. And yet each leaf is different. The audience feels it when in those two examples that I gave of The Exorcist and Godfather, and you can feel that it was, wow, I've never felt that bone structure before, and yet it's perfect, and it just moves. And I sometimes describe it as you're in a relationship with this story. And so you can yell at it, you can talk over it, you can manhandle it, but that's not a healthy relationship. It's talking back to you. And I believe maybe the end result of whether the relationship was a good relationship is in the bone structure. Ultimately, did you listen or did you jam it,
How different is your understanding of this now versus when you made whatever your very first project was?
It was more intuitive when I started in my 20s. I couldn't articulate anything we're talking about, but I was just following it. I would sit and I would know the difference between artifice, emotional artifice from me, not necessarily even the piece of art, and the connection to everything. I could feel that. And then, as always, experience helps you up to a certain point and then becomes your enemy because it's limiting.
Because it's not always the same.
It's no, yeah,
So sometimes we think because it happened in the past, well, that's how it is.
yeah,
But it was that time. It may not be this next time.
yes,
That's how you
yes.
mean it's a limitation.
I
Yes.
do. I
Yeah.
do. Sometimes I think, why does the songwriters who wrote the greatest songs of all time in their 20s can't do it in their 40s and 50s and 60s? What is that? And it's probably, now we're going to get really philosophical, but are falling in love with the illusion that is this world, this society, and that we want at it. And now we're no longer really next to the open door anymore.
It does feel like as soon as we think we know more than we do, things get dangerous.
Mm. Mm.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, and maybe we're defining ourselves. We're putting ourselves in concrete in the illusion,
Yes.
and this is us. In so many forms of this. We talked about just now. We referenced songwriters, but it could be, what they call the Oscar curse or anything where you've defined yourself.
Yeah.
And you're no longer the joy. This kind of goes full circle to what we talked about. So the joy of rejection is you never fall in love with the illusion. And you don't have that danger, so you're doing beautiful things. So a lot of us have done it on the fringe, from the outside, and it's a gift because the illusion is rejecting you.
Would you say all of your work is biographical?
Emotionally, yeah. Yeah, it's wherever I am because I've initiated most of them myself, and I would say 85% of them are original stories that just came from my head, and so they're just where I am. Like for example, the thing I'm writing now is romance, and I want it. I feel that way right now, maybe because it's such a cynical time that I want it.
Yeah.
I want to believe in something as pure and innocent as that.
Yeah.
And maybe others do too. I've trusted that whatever I'm going through, someone else is going through and feeling these things.
Yeah. I think our best chance is if it's true to us, it's likely to be true to someone else.
Yes.
Other than, well, this isn't really true to me, but this is how other people feel. It's impossible to know that.
Yes. Yeah. The analytics of that, I have, just being totally transparent, we're here and I have a tough time being in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Maybe because it's the site of commoditization of art and the discipline, the striving for systemization of it and repetition of it. And I get it. If you have to put out a certain amount of albums, a certain amount of movies every single year, you can't just wait for Michael Jordan. You have to make, facsimiles of that, and
But
how do
the
you do
idea to think everything is supposed to be a facsimile is a dangerous idea.
that? It's an attempt to raise the floor.
Yeah.
And I get that. If you're here and you need to do that, and I get that. But my job, and that's what I think living 3,000 miles away has afforded me, is a perspective of the illusion and the resistance of wanting to master the system, to win by it.
Yeah. You seem to exist well outside of the system, and it's a beautiful thing to see. There are not so many people who have been able to do that.
Something just happened before I came here, which was super positive, and something I wanted to happen and is happening, and it appears to be going really, really well. And I was driving over here, and I'm not good at this. The system saying, yeah, great, take a seat at the table. I don't even know how to be right now. Whereas I'm so built for, we don't think that's going to work. Oh, yeah?
I'll show you.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. Then I'm like, oh, on fire, and I can't wait to get to work, and let's go.
So in some ways, if it's accepted too soon, maybe there's a feeling of you haven't gone far enough.
I hope it's not rebellion. I think that's what you're referencing.
I don't know.
I hope not.
Yeah.
It could be. I just felt, a little bit untethered right now because of that acceptance. Getting the morsels from the illusion has been enough. And ironically, as I look back now in 30 years, and my kids are in their 20s, I've been married for 31 years, I've made 17 movies. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
And I'm here, and I feel like I could go for a long, long, long time. I can't keep up with the ideas in my head. But you don't want to get used to, rebellion for rebellion's sake. I'm trying to provoke. And there's amazing artists and stuff that do that. It's just the provocation. There was a musician that said something to me once that this musician everybody knows, and he said something very provocative to me. And I said, hey man, what do you want me to do with that statement? But I get how he is. He's provoking because he doesn't want a floor. He almost wants me to reject him in that moment.
Yeah.
And get the electricity going.
Yeah. A challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge.
So much of today's life happens on the web. Squarespace is your home base for building your dream presence in an online world. Designing a website is easy, using one of Squarespace's best-in-class templates. With the built-in style kit, you can change fonts, imagery, margins, and menus, so your design will be perfectly tailored to your needs. Discover unbreakable creativity with Fluid Engine, a highly intuitive drag-and-drop editor. No coding or technical experience is required. Understand your site's performance with in-depth website analytics tools. Squarespace has everything you need to succeed online. Create a blog, monetize a newsletter, make a marketing portfolio, launch an online store. The Squarespace app helps you run your business from anywhere. Track inventory and connect with customers while you're on the go. Whether you're just starting out or already managing a successful brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create and customize a beautiful website. Visit squarespace.com/Tetra and get started today.
Tell me about living in Philadelphia. Is that where you grew up?
It is. It is. I live outside Philly. We live about 45 minutes outside Philly, but go there all the time for date nights and all
you
stuff.
didn't choose it. You were essentially born into your life in Philly. You grew up in it.
Yeah. And I think
and you stayed. So the choice you made was not to leave.
Yes.
Because you could also do what you do anywhere other than here and still be the outsider.
Yes. Yes. Well, it represents so many things. I think it represents why my dad and mom, my dad particularly when he came from India, said, we're going to Philadelphia. That's where they created everything. The Declaration of Independence. That's, in his mind, that was America.
Yeah, the heart of the American idea.
So when he's leaving his home in India and the first of his family to do that, he's going towards something, an ideal that you can become anything. There's anything is available to you. And he was right. And my advantage was being born to parents that believed in that, and then being in the United States, in Philadelphia. So it feels very beautiful to be there. And that mixture of having been born in Pondicherry, India, 10,000 miles away, and living outside Philly, and telling stories to everybody in between, it feels, right.
Yeah. Do you have a particular group of people that you tend to work with?
This is an interesting subject because why the songwriter can't write their song and, or why that artist chose to provoke me is related. Is comfort the enemy of the artist? And again, it's a calibration inside. So I tend to work with new people, and not as like, hey, hey Rick, we're not going to work together again. It's a feeling I'm totally open to working with you again if we did one movie, but I'm way open as well to finding someone brand new. So I don't mind hiring inexperienced people that have only done a small movie and they haven't done a big movie. Well, come and do the score for my film. You live in Iceland, you only done one small thing, or come and edit my movie. I know you even haven't edited a movie yet.
But you see something in their work, enough of a spark where you know this is someone I want to collaborate with. I'm excited to collaborate
They're
with.
closer to the open door than I am.
Yeah.
And so they're not coming to me. They think that they're coming to me and learning from me, but I'm actually learning from them.
Understood. It's beautiful. When a story comes, does the arc of the story come, or does an element, like maybe a scene? Tell me what comes to you first that eventually becomes a movie.
Yeah, I think it was David Lynch that talked about this concept, which is there's a Rosetta Stone idea in there. And in that, whatever it is, a moment, a scene, a line, a feeling of a character.
But it could be a line.
Anything.
It could be anything.
And that Rosetta Stone idea has the answers to everything. And then it shoots out from there. I pictured this man named Rick. He lives here. And, oh, why did he end up like that? Boom. And it goes, and then the plot comes. And, ideally plot comes from character. It evolves, like, oh, he's having trouble with his wife in Sixth Sense. He's having trouble talking to his wife. Well, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why can't he connect with his wife? Why can't he connect with his wife? Why can't he connect with his wife? And then you come up with the plot. That's actually how it happened in that movie.
Interesting. So the character comes first.
I think a lot of times, for me, inside out. And look, and there's other ways to do it. You can go, hey, we're making a sequel. It has Tom Cruise. It has to have this much action. And then, okay, let's figure out what the movie is. You can do it that way. I haven't done it that way. But I would bet even those individuals that are excellent at that do it this way as well. And they can just take a deep breath and go, okay, put aside the absolutes for a second. Let me think of a story. And then they think of a character in a spy thing, and it blooms, and then it's well written, and it goes, and then it connects to these other things,
From the time that you have that first idea until you have a full vision of a movie, what period of time is that?
When you say full vision, you mean in my head, or you mean a finished movie?
Not a finished movie. To where you feel like we're ready to start making the movie.
Yeah, it's in phases. And so I'm a writer first. That's it. I don't think with that visual mind, really.
So you'd say you were a writer first and a director second.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then the director's trying to figure out why the writer wrote it the way he wrote it.
Yes. As a writer, you're writing the story true to the story. And then as the director, you don't change anything that the writer wrote because it's a better shot or a better film. The director's job is to execute the writer's work.
Yeah, why does that scene work? Why did the writer start it when that character said that? And why did he not talk about the other thing that's in the room? Why didn't they, well, he's denying it. Oh, how do I show that he's denying the fact that the body is sitting there, This is great. I can have it out of focus. And you see a visual way to depict what the writer did by what he wrote, meaning me, what I wrote or what I didn't write.
Yeah. How different are those hats, your writer's hat and your director's hat?
They're different. And in this one, they're obviously, because the writer-directors, there's a harmony there. And I'm that way when I'm adapting, even when I'm writing someone else's, like on television when I did Servant. If someone else wrote the scripts, I honor it. I don't try to one-up it. I'm trying to create resonance from what they wrote.
Do you ever look back on, when's the last time you saw Sixth Sense, for example?
They had I think like a charity screening of it for its 25 year or something like that. And I got to see it with my kids, and one of them hadn't seen it, the little one,
When you watched it then, did you have any new insight into the film that you didn't have when you made it?
This is touching another thing. Maybe this is a tangent, so it may not be too productive, but, some directors go and they go back and they change their movie after 20 years and re-release it. right? I'm going to remix it. I'm going to add these things. I'm going to put in great CGI and all stuff. And every single time they're ruining it. Every single time. There is just a fugue state that we get into, a mastery of this language that only exists at that time as the person that you are at that moment.
Yes.
So I'm watching it in some ways, like when you're watching Sixth Sense, I'm watching a 28-year-old version of myself, 27, 28, and 25 when I wrote, I'm a mid to late 20s version of myself. And him at the door to the universe, not me now in my 50s.
Yeah.
It's a wondrous thing. I'm about to show my kids my very, very first movie that I did when I was 21, which I bought and I had, and I just restored it. And it's, and
Restored it, but didn't change it.
no, I mean, like,
Technically brought it up to today.
Technically got, made sure that it was colored and, here it is so that I can present it. And I was watching it with the color timer and I was dazzled at this. Like, it's, in my opinion, terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Empirically terrible.
Yeah.
But yet the kid, the 21-year-old, and the time that it was, 1993, was so different. It's like it's another time period. Like the way that I thought you could talk that earnestly and be that sentimental, and that was okay. That was cool. I was like, man, that kid, I admire his naivete and his innocence. Want to protect it, when I see it.
Yeah. How much has your approach changed over the years from then to now?
Strangely similar. I mean, just a creature of habit.
Yeah.
I mean, very similar. Like this next movie I'm doing, it'll have the same cadence. There's this weird thing that I had when we say cadence, like Sixth Sense. And you might look at the back of a Blu-ray and see this slightly differently, but this is the truth. The Sixth Sense is 107 minutes. Unbreakable is 107 minutes. Signs is 107 minutes. The Village is 107 minutes. And how's that possible?
And that was unintentional?
Unintended.
That's unbelievable.
Unintended. And I think that's, something again with the veining of the leaves and the thing about nature and, how we are, that maybe math and rhythm and, is more related. What we think of as art and science or math is more related than we think. You can do an analysis and going, well, that's the way you hear, the rhythm of the way you talk and the way it bounces off the audience and how much they can take and how fast they want to hear the way you talk. But it is kind of fascinating. But to answer, your question, it's fairly similar. I write the first drafts and I give myself 6 weeks to do it from the outline, And in the outline begins after I've committed emotionally to getting a notebook where I fill it with ideas. And when that notebook has enough ideas, I go to the outline,
And the ideas, random ideas, it's not linear.
It's random ideas and contradictory ideas. He lives, he dies.
It could be like this, it could be like this. It could be
whatever. And that process of free association is important, again, to get to the door. Stop thinking.
You do this by yourself?
Yes.
Do you sit at a desk? Tell me about physically how this happens.
That's also a game of psychology of, I have as many places to sit and write in my house and in my office as I can. Maybe it's me hiding from my demons or whatever, but in that seat, it's coming to me. And maybe that's superstition, like sitting in the same seat during a baseball game every single time because they won the first time.
Yeah.
But it could be as rudimentary and primitive as that. But regardless, it's a placebo that works. So that area, the way I sit and look, and I have a tendency, of looking up. That you look up to, and you're emotionally in it. That's scientific in the sense.
Is that where the imagination is?
For whatever reason, as human beings, and a doctor could probably explain this better, or someone that knows the brain. But as you look down, you have darker thoughts, and as you look up, you have lighter thoughts. This is why we look up when we're trying to stop crying, and you have your brain goes into a different mode. And so I think, when I sit up, there's actually even like a reclining position in bed right before I go to bed. Like I read before I go to bed, and whatever that angle is, that 45, and then my head's like, against pillow, but I'm looking up at this. corner of the ceiling, I can see everything. Like I get, gosh, I write that down, write that down, write that down. Oh, I have to say this. I have to call Rick. I have to do this, and I get 20 things. But the rest of the time, it's convoluted, and so I'm very open to that. And then also when I'm like, for example, in that exact example, when I'm reading it and thing, I'll often, because I'm reading, especially if I'm reading something I'm very inspired by an artist that's writing with inspiration and precision, I will glimpse the answers to the thing that I'm working on, like almost like it's on the on the other side of the book, because it's happening simultaneously, and I'm going, oh, I know what to do now. I know that thing, but I'm reading a completely unrelated story.
Yeah.
It's just that they're reminding me how to get to the door again.
Yes. It's amazing how, if you have a question you're trying to solve or a problem you're trying to solve, if you just sort of pay attention to what's going on around you, for some reason, more often than not, it seems like the answer comes. Like you're told it.
If you believe in, the brain waves and things like that, when we're in flight or fight, you're constricted. And when we're about to fall asleep, like I was just saying, you're just not in that headspace. You see everything.
You're free.
You're free.
Yeah.
And so it just dances and finds it and grabs it and brings it to you. And that might be that, when, we're here in your studio, and if it's flat or inspired, it's, you can panic. And then now you're in fight or flight. Now you're in the wrong wavelengths to connect with everything. And so it's very, important in terms of, and that's why early in our careers, it's much easier because the system has completely rejected you. You're not even really connected.
You're not considering them.
Yeah, you're not considering them, right?
Yeah.
And then later when you've won and they've anointed you in the system, wow, you can't get to the door anymore.
Yeah. Are you superstitious in general?
Yes. I'm very much like, you come to our house, I have photos of everything, photos of every moment in our family, like a church to the life that we've had. Like you come in and it's like, there's the 16th birthday, there's the 30th birthday, that's the thing, that's the vacation we took. And it sounds normal, but it is strangely like a shrine to gratefulness. And yes, the other day I was walking to my office and all my movie posters are there, and I'm walking up the stairs to go to my office to work, and God, I'm so grateful. I by the time I got to the top of the stairs, I was like, I don't know how to thank whoever for this opportunity. And yet every step along the way, I felt like I was suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that the pictures and the posters are there to remind you of something?
Yeah, they are, because, when well, again, they're the things that I hold sacred, which is the family, and our friends, that are in those photos, the curation of a life, and that it's not passive, and you're the artist, and the car wreck can happen to you, and it does happen to all of us, what you do in the next moments, then using that color and in the most beautiful way. And I guess I just, when I go through really bad periods, like when something bad's happening to me or something, I'm not constricted by the fear of the bad thing happening to me. When things are going really well, it's classic, classic feeling. And so
What
I
would
feel
be an
so good.
example of something bad happening?
When I worked for Harvey, that was a tough time when I was a kid, and it was dark, and, I felt no agency.
Yeah.
But yet again, in retrospect, getting to spar with the darkest person in our industry as a kid
Makes you strong.
Yeah.
LMNT, LMNT Electrolytes. Have you ever felt dehydrated after an intense workout or a long day in the sun? Do you want to maximize your endurance and feel your best? Add LMNT Electrolytes to your daily routine. perform better, and sleep deeper. Improve your cognitive function. Experience an increase in steady energy with fewer headaches and fewer muscle cramps. LMNT Electrolytes. Drink it in the sauna. Refreshing flavors include grapefruit, citrus, watermelon, and chocolate salt. Formulated with the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to keep you hydrated and energized throughout the day. These minerals help conduct the electricity that powers your nervous system so you can perform at your very best. LMNT Electrolytes are sugar-free, keto-friendly, and great tasting. Minerals are the stuff of life. So visit drinklmnt.com/tetra and stay salty with LMNT Electrolytes. LMNT.
What's your first memory of going to the movies?
One memory has obliterated the others, which was 7 and seeing Star Wars.
So there were probably movies pre-Star Wars, but Star Wars was so important that
Yeah,
it took over.
it took over. I became a different person
Yeah.
on that day. It was what I assume people feel with religious zealots, when you know what you feel.
You felt reborn.
Yeah, I felt this is truthful
Yeah.
in some universal answers. This is 7-year-old mindset. This makes sense. I'm in. And I don't mean it in like a video game way. I meant it in a religion way.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Cosmic.
Yeah, cosmic, yes. Whoever was this, and I didn't know who George, I was 7 years old, right?
Yeah.
You don't know who any of these people are. Or Joseph Conrad, you don't know anything, but you know whoever did this on an intuitive level knows the truth. And so it was that was what I was feeling in the car, in the station wagon on the way home. I wanted to feel it again,
Yeah.
you know?
Did you have any of the figures?
Oh yeah, I still have them. I have them in a little box. The ones I had in 7, 8, they're there. They're sacred,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. What was the next movie experience where it was like game changer for you?
Yeah, that would be Raiders.
Raiders.
Yeah, and it was also because I can think the universe had me go. We went there. I didn't know what archaeology was. I didn't want to go. I remember that feeling because I didn't want to. I thought it was some science thing, and I didn't want to go. And
You went with your parents?
No, I went with my friend,
Mm-hmm.
and parents
And
dropped us
Star
off.
Wars, you went with your parents?
I did. Parents and my sister.
Mhm.
But my parents obviously dropped me off at the theater, in the Narbert Theater, and we were waiting in line. It was a huge line outside to see it. We get in there. It's an old theater. I think it's at 2000 or something, or 1000. It was a huge theater and old fashioned, you know, with all the ornamentation and
Beautiful.
everything. Yeah, absolutely
It's the
beautiful.
best.
Yeah, and couldn't sit next to each other because there was no seats available. Terrified. I mean, I was a real shy kid. Really, this was terror on a scale that was, I don't know what to do. And there's no phones, there's nothing. You can't call your parents. And my friend says, well, I sit down, and there's a couple next to me, and they see I'm very scared. Like I'm very holding my hands. I'm very scared. And they're like, "You okay?" I'm like, "I'm okay." You know. And they're like, and they went to get popcorn and thing, and they gave me it, and I was like, "Thank you." And I was sitting there, and then the lights go down, and then the mountain starts, the logo, and then the logo turns into a real mountain. And again, without knowing, going, whoa, And again, we're talking like two of the masters that we're telling you, like they're the game-changing ones. And how lucky was I, to experience that. And then came out of it, and I was changed. And I was like, I got to keep doing this. So then it became play, a version of play to do that. And then, hey, can I
act out the movies?
Yeah. And then you're acting it out, and then taking my dad's camera and saying, hey, can I do this? This is these guys are doing this. How do you do this? And then playing with the camera.
How old were you when you started playing with the camera?
At that age, 10 to 12, so taking my dad's camera. And then in that era, the video camera started to come, the VHS and the Betamax cameras. But they were huge, and they would plug into your actual Betamax.
So at first, was it 8mm?
It was 8mm, yeah.
So you started in film.
Yeah, absolutely. That sound was so satisfying as I went in the camera, and and then the play is so wonderful. The thing you did for fun everywhere at 15, and you read a book there's a guy named Spike Lee, and he goes to a school called the Tisch School of the Arts, and you can go learn how to become a filmmaker. And I was like, I can do the play thing as a career.
Was there anything else you ever wanted to do besides filmmaking?
I mean, I loved athletics. So that was always kind of fantasy of playing tennis or whatever it was. But this was really the sole career thing. It was kind of you just know. And so your brain is just that's all you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say that when people come to me now, and my wife will have a different answer to this or a comment on this subject. But when people come up to me and go, are you going to take a break? There's so much assumption in that statement. And I get it. The assumption from the person that's asking that is you've constructed your life in a way that you have to do something, and then you're doing that to do the other thing. And so you should take a break from the thing you have to do so you can do the things that you want to do, right? There's an assumption because most everyone on the planet is doing that. I'm so lucky.
You're doing the thing you want to do.
Yeah. So if it was yoga or painting
Whatever
or whatever
it is.
Yeah. The thing that gives you absolute peace and connection to the world is the thing that I get paid to do. So, so sometimes I pretend, I go, yeah, I'm going to take a vacation soon. But then I hate myself for that answer.
Yeah. Do you have a passionate connection to anything else besides film and your family?
Sports. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've done
watching or playing.
Playing. Yeah, like I play basketball all the time.
Fun.
Yeah, and I have both my knees. I have 2 ACLs, both done from basketball. The therapy, the whole thing, all in, and then as an exercise to carve yourself. Your discipline and connection, and I learn about myself.
Tell me something about writing something that someone else directs.
Oh yes, I wrote Stuart Little.
Yeah.
And then another person directed it.
What's that like?
That one was good and okay because it was almost like a semi-animated thing, right? Because there were live action people in that, but because it's almost another art form, the animation thing, and it's not something that I'm motivated or know how to do, it was totally fine and wondrous to do. And I guess I went into it wanting to write something for our child that wasn't born yet. So I was like, let me write this for whoever this is. And so it came out in that innocent way, and I felt good about it. And then I enjoyed the movie, the tone of the movie, which I would have never leaned it like that, but I really enjoyed its playfulness.
Were you surprised with the choices made when you saw them?
Yeah, and that is the beauty, right? Everybody's bringing their own color to the table and pressing in a different way. And in my head, when I was writing it, it had more of a classicism and more of a emotion. And then when it was made, it had this really colorful buoyancy to it, which is absolutely lovely.
Do you think going to a Catholic school impacted your creative choices?
For sure.
In what way?
I mean, just look, I did Knock at the Cabin is a kind of biblical story. And Servant, 4 years on the Apple thing, #1 show is about like angels, and it's there. The mythology that I went to school with is one of the mythologies I use as genre. There's ghosts, and then there's aliens and superheroes, and there's the religion.
Are there ghosts?
What do you think? I'll answer after, but what do you think? I'm really curious about
I think yes.
Uh-huh.
Do you think they're aliens?
I definitely do. That's just mathematically impossible that they're...
Does ESP exist?
Pretty close. Probably pretty close.
Can we become invisible?
Oh, man. You mean in the way that... It's funny you said that because I just thought of a movie idea.
It worked.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can forget things that I do and say, even though we're right here, and I'm kind of making that happen? I think so. And it's probably some movement of energy that's not being present or something.
Can we levitate?
I would love to believe that. I was that kid that just kept on looking at the cup or the pencil and says, I can make it move, I can make it move. And I swear today I still look at it and I go, I think I can make it
Yeah,
move.
that's called psychokinesis.
Yes, yes. But it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. What percentage of the ideas that you have come to fruition?
A high percentage, Every film idea that I've had since puberty has been either made or been offered to be made. And so I don't really develop like that. I have a lot of ideas. They're in like notebooks, but they're just literally like a one line like that. And they'll speak to me at the right time or not, but like, for example, like it's just, I'm committed to it. I'm fully committed. And so the tornado of effort and energy that I'm going to now bring, and I'm going to, by sheer will, make a movie exist in the universe, no matter what, I'm able to turn it on in that way to just bring it to, manifest it no matter what.
Can you work on more than one project at the same time?
Not directing.
Okay.
Not directing. Not two movies, let's say. I've done the TV show and a movie at the same time when I'm doing like one like small episode, but I didn't write that episode. So it's a different part of me a little bit that does that, It was really interesting working on continuation of someone else's idea, like in a TV show, because sometimes, art allows you to be more honest about yourself because you're not being you. And so I can write a male character that has flaws that I'm like, oh, he has those flaws, but really I have those flaws. Or she, who's a proxy for me, it feels this way about the world. Oh, that's so poignant, she does. Well, that's me that feels that way, but I can't be that honest even with myself about it. It's a beautiful aspect of it. And sometimes I feel like even when I trick myself into going, well, this is not mine. Like if you had something, hey, help me with that. And then I start coming up with it. You're getting a part of me that's not protective or tight. And so I'm coming from like a very free loving space. And then if I go, and sometimes I trick myself. And even the movie that I'm writing right now, in fact, the last two, I've tricked myself into going, oh, that's for someone else. Because I genuinely thought I was going to just have this idea and someone else was going to do it and I'd produce it.
Will you allow things to happen that you wouldn't allow to happen if you're protecting it for yourself?
Probably. Yeah. I was going to say I couldn't form what I'm about to say, but maybe you can connect the dots. I know in like Juilliard and things, they have this class where you wear masks and then you perform and then you immediately take on this other thing, and maybe it's a version of that I'm wearing someone else's mask, so I'm free. I'm not me, so I'm free. And then you're doing something that feels really great and you want to continue it. And now you have to take off the mask to continue it.
What do you think you're best at?
Seeing talent in others. I love it. I'm so inspired by it, and that could be anything. That could be, of course, it can be the artist, the singer, the costume designer, whatever, but it could also be the waiter and going, wow, the invention that is you is amazing. And in this moment when you're having your light is shining and this is incredible and you're teaching all of us and guiding us in that way. But I'm so endlessly inspired by everything. And so seeing like, if you're going just in the movies, seeing a movie and saying, my gosh, the photography, or who did the costumes on that? And there's this lady who lives in Bulgaria and I have to work with her.
So you build the best team because you recognize, regardless of the context that it's coming from, you can say, whoever did that, they're really good.
Yeah, having the humility to know that it's not a static position of you are good, you are bad, you are connected, you're not. When I meet an actor, who has an incredible, or she has an incredible body of work, it's the meeting the person is really to say, where are you today? That's it. Obviously you've done these beautiful, inspired things with the universe, but where are you today? the place where you are today as a human being and where I am, is that together going to make us make this beautiful fictional creature?
In a world of artificial highs and harsh stimulants, there is something different, something clean, something precise. Athletic nicotine. Not the primitive products found behind convenience store counters. Not the aggressive buzz that leaves you jittery, but a careful calibration of clean energy and focused clarity. Athletic nicotine. The lowest dose tobacco-free nicotine available. Made entirely in the USA. No artificial sweeteners, just pure, purposeful elevation. Athletic nicotine is a performance nootropic. Athletic nicotine is a tool for shifting mindsets. Athletic nicotine is a partner in pursuit of excellence. Slow release, low dose, gradual lift, sustained energy, soft landing, inspired results. Athletic nicotine, more focus, less static. Athletic nicotine, more clarity, less noise. Athletic nicotine, more accuracy, less anxiety. Athletic nicotine, from top athletes pushing their limits to artists pursuing their vision. Athletic nicotine offers the lift you've been looking for. Learn more at athleticnicotine.com/tetra and experience next level performance with Athletic Nicotine.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
How difficult is it working with actors?
I love it. Especially the way I make movies is it's unusual in that it's very, in theory, one could from a far away say, it's so prescriptive.
Tell me what it is. How do you do it?
So I write the thing and that's the words we're saying.
No ad-libbing.
Yeah,
no...
I mean, it's very, very rare, to do that. The reason I didn't write there was a reason. So don't say
Okay.
It's a painting of colors. And then from there, it's the director and on the side of me and the storyboard artist, we draw every single shot out. And that's what we're shooting. And so that sounds very limiting. And why would you do that? Why aren't you being open?
How well do you know what the film is going to look like before you shoot it?
I mean, identical.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like an animated movie.
Wow.
Yeah. You could come and I could show you each movie and it's like an anime, like a graphic novel. You could watch it. And then so you go, why I said from a distance, that sounds incredibly restrictive and prohibitive. And yet, with that honest and months of painting those things, the actors come in. First of all, they already know that that they've heard me, I've done it so many times. And then they say, okay, this is the way we're doing this particular dance. Okay. And then I come in and then they realize, wow, it's infinite the way you can play it based on these factors. That the camera is moving on this line because it represents your anger. So if you don't get angry, the camera's not going to move, And so you have to choose it. And the pace of the way the camera is moving towards you is predicated on how fast and how angry you get. And that's what I'm going to tell the operator, you're not listening because you just did a move that was even. And that's not what the character did. That's not what the actor did. The actor did this kind of sinus move of like holding back, and then burst. But you didn't do that. So you stare at her eyes, and then they go, oh my God. And that was thought of 3 months ago. And they get it as that it's a three-dimensional medium and that, again, the choices of how to play it are infinite, and then that being held by thought, not capriciousness or restriction for restriction's sake. It wasn't. It was inspired. It was an inspired kind of, this is the visual script for the words, and now we're going to add life to it. This is the frame of the painting. Now fill it with and the messier, more real, great. So like if I'm pushing and then you see the actress, gets angry and her head goes out for a second and comes in, great. Great. Just it's that frame is just because when we see a painting, we take it and the frame is also critical to our emotion about the painting.
When did you first start working that way?
That was Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And that came from a thesis of watching one of the scenes in my movie at Miramax and going, wow, that's the only scene that works. Why is that? and then breaking down, oh, that's what I did in that scene. Huh, that's what the camera did. Interesting. Oh, wow, that's also in Psycho. Oh, that's also in, and pick whatever movie, E.T. It's also in,
Yeah.
and you're going, huh, this principle of, the art form of the visual, because it's all art forms together. So honoring it, and I say that we cannot defer to one art form only. Even that art form is acting. That's one part of it. It's in a dance with everything else. It is also dance. So the blocking is so critical. It is poetry. So the words, the is so important. It's light, painting with light, It's costumes. We keep going. It's all art forms together. So critical.
Tell me the whole process from the time you have the script.
So I have this script, let's say, and then the next person is a storyboard artist who then comes, and we spend about 3 months storyboarding. And during that time,
And that's when you're essentially making the movie.
yes, in my head,
Yeah.
yes. And we'll also at that time, if it's location dependent, and oftentimes it is, you can draw from finding the locations to enhance that, the visuals of that.
Typically real locations or sets.
If I can't find it,
Then
then we
build it.
make it. And you'll see
But you
movies.
defer to real location if you can.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd say that. For example, if you look at Signs or Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, these were everything was built. So built the train even, and it's because I see the camera doing this and this and this and turning to the left. Well, there is no bedroom to the left. Well, we're going to make a bedroom to the left, and
Yeah.
it's a part of the art form. So like if you see another person who does that, would be like like in Parasite. When the table is where the table is. Have you seen Parasite?
I'm not.
Oh, absolutely incredible movie. And there's a stairs and a door that's critical in the kitchen, and it's right at the end of the table, and there's stairs that go down. You're not going to find that house. So he built it, and why is it so critical? Is the way all the shots that he came up and how he saw it, and that creates a specificity of audience experience, because they know without knowing. Oh my God, the table's here and the thing here, and it creates this beautiful composition, and this man's coming up, and his head first and his eyes, and then, you go, wow, it's possible to find that, but I built it. We build a lot of it. And even when I have a location like with The Visit, because it was super low budget and all, I rented a house for a year, so where we were going to shoot it. And so I just sat in the house. And I had to move my brain around a bit to make it work in the same way, but then I made each shot
Did
from
you
that.
know the house before you storyboarded it?
No, in that case, because I knew I had to find the house first, and because I didn't have the money to build this house.
Yeah.
So, that was the first movie that I funded myself. So I was like, I just got to find a house, and we just need to be able to rent it so we can shoot and reshoot and all that stuff. So then I just sat in this empty house and worked out all the shots.
Okay, so the storyboard happens.
Yeah.
What happens next?
And then by that point, you're overlapping into pre-production, which was then everyone starts coming, all the crew members start
You've already
arriving.
casted?
Yes, that would be en route during the storyboarding process, and then dovetailing into pre-production. Kind of the casting kind of trickles through that period.
Typically, how many main characters are there?
It really varies. Like a movie like Old is so many people. It's a group, it's a collective experience. And the one I'm doing now has really 2 main characters. So it can vary dramatically.
Okay, so what happens next?
Then pre-production and all the crews come, and then it becomes a very much almost like a military operation. There's all my assistant directors and everyone, and every minute of the day is, Phil, you need to meet with the art department to decide this. You need to go to locations to pick the ice cream shop where the thing's happening. You got to go visit 7 ice cream shops, or they're building you the bedroom downstairs. You need to go look at it. Every moment is covered. Okay, got to meet the prop guy, on and on, and then you're going to go to costumes, and then you're going to talk through, they want to walk through these characters today, and boom, 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 like that,
And what happens after that? Next phase.
And that builds to kind of the highest intensity till day 1 of shooting. And so that gets more and more and more intense. And during that latter part of pre-production. As you're getting very close to shooting in those last 2 weeks, that's when rehearsals, actors arrive.
I see.
And we rehearse and talk about philosophy and try to get to know each other, and in that trust way, where
Do you shoot the films in order or not necessarily?
I try to, as much in order as humanly possible. It's not that you have to do it that way, but again, when you're trying to do something so precise, I'm not sure what her anger is yet in scene 47 until we've done scene 32. And, with her and I, working through, is her anger being, presented as detachment? We might decide that, and mostly you would probably get there in rehearsals, but you might crystallize that realization in scene 32. Oh, when she shuts down when she gets really, really angry, and it's scary. And so then in 47, when she runs in, it's either a break from that style of, and then you have to play that like I'm gonna burst, from being at this place. So it's so much more helpful to go in order for me, but it's not impossible. It's really impractical to do it that way.
Yeah.
Like say there's 3 scenes here in the room that we're in. We can't keep coming in and out of your house to keep shooting it. So you try to shoot all 3 scenes, but I try as hard as I can to keep it for you guys, the actors, as in continuity as possible.
Do you ever consider in the writing phase the practicality of the shooting?
I do. It's inherently because I love minimalism and I love containment. So I'm always anyway thinking that way, and insinuation. And, a long zillion years ago, they had offered me a movie called Troy, which was made in this big, wonderful way. But when they sent me the script and I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, so maybe I could have 2 guys fighting and there could be a wall behind them, an old wall, and then the real battle with 1,000 soldiers on the outside, on the other side of the wall, and you're only hearing it. And it's just between these 2 guys. So we could do the battle, and you could glimpse it through like a little moment through like the wall, but that's it.
That's really interesting.
So that immediately my mind started going to the minimal version, the insinuative version of a giant battle movie.
Yeah.
But I like that kind of,
You
I
think
believe in
it's
it.
the intimacy or the personal nature of 2 big people on the screen instead of 50 people or 100 or 1,000 people on the screen?
My brain just does not work that way. So when all of these amazing artists like, Cameron and Spielberg and all these guys they can see that big, wonderful, complicated thing, I just panic. And, I'm so titillated by the idea of incompleteness. I love that. And so I'm just showing you a part of the painting.
Yeah. Have you ever considered directing theater or writing for theater?
Definitely. Yeah, I feel most of my movies could be plays. And so I've really thought about it a lot, about whether to just take 6 months or a year and go write a play and, see how that feels, to just rely on the blocking and the written word to do most of the storytelling. I mean, you can use other aspects, of course, it's very innovative these days, but fear is probably just stopping me.
How would you describe your demeanor on the set?
A mixture of temperaments, I would say. It moves from highly kind of concentrated and, quiet and, my wife would probably just say anxious, but,
Do you feel anxious?
I find the making of a movie matches my anxiety really well, becomes a superpower, because my mind can go to the next shot's this, you need to set up that, whisper to the gaffer this, whisper that, do that, saying, okay, we need to do this. Oh, this sweater is I have an idea for the next thing with the sweater she's wearing. But in my mind, it's buzzing, and I can use it to an advantage, whereas in regular life, you have to calm it and say, stop playing chess. Whereas on the set, playing chess at 100 miles an hour is great. I'm super efficacious, you pounding all that energy. So I'll say something like to, the ADs, everybody knows my thing, which is, hey, we're going to be ready. I think the actors should be here when we're ready, as opposed to, we're ready, call the actors. That doesn't work like that. And I'll explain to the actors why that's the case, that they should be waiting on the 100 of us, not the 100 of us waiting on the one person. And I say, I'll use an example, like, hey, let's say I say, well, shot's ready. Okay, we call that person. They come, they get off their phone in the trailer, they go to the bathroom, they walk over, come to the set. And let's say they do it really fast, 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? 5 minutes. Okay, what's the problem? It's 5 minutes. 12 shots a day, 5 minutes, 1 hour. I just lost 1 hour. In the end of the week, you lost 5 hours. In 2 weeks, you lost a day of shooting.
And you need that day.
That day of shooting. You lost a day of shooting. So what? We're not doing that, you know? And so when I walk through why we're doing it.
What hours do you work?
Well, it depends if it's outdoors or nighttime and things like that. But if it's stage work, I try to do kind of, we're shooting by, 7 or 7:30, and then we can finish early. I do try to do 10-hour days.
What is early? 10-hour day?
I try to do 10 hours. Recently, I've done it and outside the country, and we've done 10 hours straight, where, they're more used to doing, you eat while you stand, and then you finish, and everybody goes home early.
Yeah.
But here, we don't do that as much.
Where have you done that? What countries have you worked in outside of the US?
We did the last movie we did in Canada, and then my daughter's movie we did in Ireland, and that was wonderful. And then we did a movie in the Dominican called Old, and all of those we did those kind of straight 10-hour days.
You mentioned the first movie that you funded yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what led to that happening.
Wow.
How many movies did you make before that?
I don't know. Maybe that's 10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period where I was thinking that the fear and the getting the morsels from the system were indicators that I wasn't doing it right. So let me find a way to join the system, because everyone is like, tacitly saying to do it the normal way, do it the normal way, go do it the normal way. And then there's so many rewards for doing it the normal way. And you could just coast and do it. So I think there was a period of time where I joined the system, tried to join the system.
And that was for the first 10?
No, it was in the middle period.
Okay.
In this middle period. That first period was a different era in filmmaking. It was a different time in the studio system, because they really were making original movies. And the system was geared towards that kind of. So there was a lot of us doing.
Was that still a leftover from the revolution of the Raging Bull, Easy Rider?
Probably.
Late 70s.
Yeah, it still went through the 90s. Yeah, right till there. And then it started to change.
Independent-minded movies.
Yes, and that's what it was. You need to find the next great new story and new storyteller. That was what the system was built for. And then from there, and right when the 2000s started till now, it has become an addiction of being familiar. The framing is more important than the painting. And maybe that's indicative of how fast things are going. And people need to feel, okay, there must be a wonderful reason, a healing reason, that saying the second movie or the third movie makes you feel really, okay, good, I know what I'm going to get, I'm going to go in there. That wasn't the case, prior to 2000s. You had your outliers, but generally speaking, it was fresh. Yeah, so that first group was still coming off of the kind of original blockbuster stuff that was really, really free and working. And then, again, as I said, I think I was feeling this, hey, maybe you don't have to be as exposed, and maybe it doesn't have to be this hard, and maybe there's a way that you can be, accepted, because everybody's telling you that. Just do it this way. Just join the system. Do it that way, I guess in music, it would be kind of just put that voice box thing on whatever it is, that sound that everybody has. It's just do it. That's the sound of today. And you go, maybe I'm being arrogant. And so I tried to join the system in that middle area, and I'm not good at it, and I don't know how to do it. And it's not about...
It's also not why you started doing it. You didn't get into it for that.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably, if you're being very honest, probably more of a reward-centered behavior, which is pathetic, that I just want the rewards or the safety or the concomitant positive things that can happen by being in the system. But the beauty that came from that was I wasn't happy at all. I wasn't good at it. And that brought clarity. And then as I told you, I get very ignited when people give up and they go, he can't do that, or he can't do that anymore, or whatever it is. And they come up with a statement. I love it. So then I was like, I used to think if I was an NBA player, would I have in my contract a clause that says I'm allowed to play street ball? Most, they don't have, they have the opposite, which is you're not allowed to do any of those sports, because we're paying for you.
Yeah.
So
you might get hurt, and that would
yes,
impact everything.
yes. So in this kind of metaphor, I was like, well, let's just go play street ball. So no one asked me to make a movie. In fact, I'm going to make a movie that they say won't succeed. Everyone's going to be either old or a child, and I'm going to make it super funny and scary, which they said can't be done. It just can't. Those two things can't exist. It was the not having been connected to the illusion or connected to the system freed me to kind of do it differently. And I was so happy. And when we were making this is before we sold it, before everything, I was really happy making that movie, The Visit.
And the one before that was a big studio picture?
That's correct, yeah. And I didn't have really ultimately the say in that picture to make it what I want. But I want to be really clear, that's a cop-out. Because at any moment I could have walked away.
Right.
And I didn't.
But you're also not a quitter, so I understand.
No, yes. But there are, in today's vernacular, now the way I am, as soon as I realize the situation is fraught with artifice or an inability for us to do the kind of soul-searching and conversation that you and I are having, I'm out.
Yeah. So you decide to fund the movie yourself.
Yeah. So I made this movie, went totally off the grid, made this thing, went all my instincts on it, went everything about it on paper. Any algorithm of success would tell you this is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And yet everything in me said it's going to work. And I make it, and then I panic a little bit, and I say, I need to sell this because I put a mortgage on the house and all this stuff. And so I show it to everyone in the industry, basically the buyer versions of the industry, 6 weeks after I shoot it. So 6 weeks, nothing. Like I just slapped it together and show it to everybody because I just want them to give me the money and I'm safe and I'm not going to be some true Hollywood story of, what happened and now, and they all passed. Everybody passes. And one company said, I'd love to see it when it's done, but they didn't buy it, right? But everybody else passes. So I fly home. I'm like, oh my God. And
Do you think they pass because they don't like it, or is there more to the story?
It's so different. There's no precedent for it. They keep trying to use...
They have no context for this movie.
Yes, no context at all.
Because it's not another one that was successful, so they could point to, well, it's just like that thing that worked.
Impossible, right? So they don't have that, and they have the context of what they believe is they've lost faith in me, in the system, in their opinion, right? So that's all context related. And it wasn't quite finished. So it's like a 65% version of what it will ultimately be.
Yeah.
So you either see the 65% or you go, no, it's really only 30%, in your head. You're using all that context to crush it.
Mm-hmm.
So I come home, and my daughter at that time, the youngest daughter, and I used to have this thing with me and her, would do puzzles together. And that's what we did. We go in the dining room and take a 1,000-piece puzzle and dump it on the thing. And we dump it on the thing. And so I got home.
Jigsaw puzzle. And
she was there, and I was completely like a little bit not in my, I was, not here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking through my house, which I think we're going to sell, and she doesn't know anything. She's just a little kid. And so we sit down and we start to do the thing. And then I'm like, let's do it. And we sit down and we're looking for a piece. And we eventually find it. And we're so excited. It took us 20 minutes to find this one piece, right? It's the beginning of the thing to make it match. And then I went, wow, all I have to do is just trust that this painting is, this is going to make a picture. And I trust it because it came out of a box. That trusted it. And there is a piece there. Just find the next piece. You don't have to even know how to do this whole thing. Just find the next puzzle piece. And I went, well, that's what I just got to do.
Yeah.
Just find the next puzzle piece. So the next morning I went into the editing room and we just made one line better and one cut better. And I just spent my days doing one piece at a time, one puzzle piece at a time. And then soon I forgot that there was a mortgage, and I forgot all the rejections and all that stuff. And I was just excited about the next piece, the next piece, the next piece. And then I went, oh, how about if I do this? Oh, you know what? I could go back and shoot this and grab this. That'd be so fun. And do that. And then it just kept on going, and I forgot all about it. And then by the time I got months later, when I'd done it hundreds and hundreds and the painting was done, I was like, let's go back to that person that said they wanted to see it again, and let's show it to them in front of an audience. And we did, and that was Universal Pictures, and they bought it. And
What was it like seeing it in front of the audience?
they went through the roof.
Yeah.
They were screaming and yelling and laughing, and
Yeah.
exactly what the thesis was, which is that the laughter would turn into screams, and then they would laugh at themselves for screaming, and it was so outrageous and provocative, roller coaster ride, and then they would just forget to be quiet, and they're all just vocal, and it's like a roll, up and down, and then the explosion and the laughter and the clapping and all of that stuff. And so it was joy. They could feel my play, and then, that went and became like a huge success with that movie. And then I went on and did many, many, many movies with Universal, and here we are still,
Did you do them that way, where you would fund them, or they would?
No, then I did all of them funded, so I funded all of them from then on.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you at one point have a relationship with Blumhouse?
What I ended up doing was showing Jason Blum the movie The Visit and saying,
The finished movie.
pretty much,
Yeah.
and saying, could we take one of your slots?
Yeah.
And so I have that much more, because even after I showed the movie, there's a resistance, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's guessing. So they need things. So his imprimatur was critical at that moment, because they really believed in him. So that combination was like, all right, we'll give you that slot. And then together we went and took that slot. And then it was great,
So have you made more with him?
We did another one after that together.
Great.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll make more.
Great.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting part of the process for you of filmmaking?
The most painful is the preview screenings, when you're showing it to audiences. It's the most painful, because what you're making and what they're seeing are not exact.
Yeah.
And so the process of getting it, that the thing I'm making and the thing they're seeing is this one and the same. And because it's a juxtapositional art form. So if I cut from you to, it's the Eisenstein theory of cinema. Like if I cut from you looking at the bowl, they're interpreting that you're hungry. But maybe didn't mean that. And so these unintentional connections, so what they're watching versus what I intended, we have to get that in sync is a process of like, this feels like your soul a little bit, it's getting torn, but it's a beautiful thing to become one.
How do you think being a father informed who you are?
Oh, it's everything. I think I was a father even before I became a father. It's just in me. Like I love kids, and kids really, I think are drawn to me. So like we'll be somewhere, and a little kid will come up to me in a grocery store. They come and I'll hug them, and they're our gurus. They're the ones that are teaching us. We're teaching them about this stupid world that we're in, but they're really teaching us much, much more important things.
Have you ever had a mystical experience?
I mean, everything we've been talking about, my whole life, the whole thing, man, the whole thing. I mean, you stare at posters of like, people, and then they become your friends and partners when you're older, and, it's just incredible.
How would you say success has changed you?
Well, in a bad way, it has increased my anxieties or the bad versions of my ambition. There's good ambition, and we need growth, but maybe it's tweaking kind of greed or insecurities of winning in some way.
Are you competitive?
Yeah. But it should be aimed at yourself,
Yeah. Tell me about the marketing part of the film. Do you get involved at all in the poster, in the trailer, in all of the things surrounding the film?
Yeah. So I talk to young filmmakers about this question, and I say, in 2024, and it wasn't that way like when they put out 5 Easy Pieces or something back in the day. They took a New York Times ad and a Los Angeles Times ad, and that was it. And then everything else was, it's playing at your local theater for 1 year, and you eventually would tell me to go see it. That's how it was, advertising was. But now it's as costly or costlier than the movie, and they have to sell something. And so what ends up happening is that the marketing department has started telling you the story before we did. So the story has begun. So the storytelling is started already. So you have to be a part of it, in my opinion, because if you're passive, then they could tell a different story than the one that you're making, and then you have a problem. So I'm very clear, like when I'm making something, okay, this is going to be, they're going to tell this part of the story before they come into the movie theater, and then we're going to withhold this part of the story. And I have to make sure that I have enough for them to tell this part of the story, because they spend a lot of money to get it in every theater in the world, in a global release. You know, when you're doing platform or indie film, that's not necessarily the case. You can get closer to the 5 easy pieces thing, but not exactly.
Do you make movies to be seen in the theater?
That's it, only, yeah.
Yeah. And how is the experience different seeing one of your movies in a theater with a group of people versus watching it at home on a streaming service?
There's so many differences of that, but the most important one, the primary one, let's put aside the kind of gratuitous things that at home you're watching it while you're getting changed or doing your laundry or you know, putting on your makeup and you're kind of half watching it. Put aside that, which is real and sad, but let's pretend you were watching it in an ideal form, you know, on your couch, you don't talk, you don't talk, you're and you're watching it. When you're watching something by yourself, you are bringing only your worldview to the table, only your perspective of the world. So you will see only those things that reinforces, and you'll be blind to the other things. You know, you're going to, let's say, for example, you're a 50-year-old dude watching Twilight. You're going to go, wait a minute, Now, if you're in a movie theater and it's full of all ages, and you have everyone there, and there's a group of teenage girls down in the front of the theater that are laughing and gasping, and the thing, you cannot help but feel what they're feeling. You're connected like a quilt. So you become a larger version of yourself, something where we're all tied together. And I think a better version of ourselves. So she's reminding me that that's actually funny, that scene. It wasn't something to make fun of. That was something that was funny. It was intended. Oh, that has wit for, and when you're commenting on what it's like to be a 15-year-old girl or 16-year-old, oh, and then your gravitas that you're bringing at age 50, she's feeling that in the silence, in the way you're holding that look from the father or whatever it is. You know, you're each teaching each other to see through each other's eyes in this tiny, important way. And that's beautiful. We expand. We get to be beyond our particular worldview. It's such a beautiful art form, the collective experience together of a story.
Can you imagine ever making a black and white film?
Sure. Definitely. Minimalism is lovely. And to some extent, I could argue that it's the most powerful way to do it, because it really is in the language of incomplete.
Yeah.
And you're filling in everything.
I love the idea of the language of the incomplete. I think it's beautiful, beautiful thing to think about.
Because when you try to complete it, you're obviously going to fail.
Yeah.
It's much more complicated and beautiful than the way I was going to define, even if it's a fictional thing, a creature or whatever it is. That's why, because the shark wasn't working in Jaws, you got to do it in an incomplete way, and thus it became much bigger and scarier.
More poetic.
Yes.
And the beauty of the incomplete is the audience gets to complete it themselves. And the way we each complete it is different.
It's bespoke for each of us.
It's true for each of us.
Yeah.
If you could remake the entire movie system, how would it work differently if you were in charge of the whole system?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man, because as I said, it's so much about giving you such a heavy frame that you already know the meal already before you've eaten it. And if you're eating a cheeseburger and you don't really rate the cheeseburger unless it's really extraordinary, and then you kind of go, but as long as you got a cheeseburger, you're like, that was good. But if I said, was it really good? Was the bread great? Was the cheese today? You'll be like, well, it was okay. And you'll be like, well, actually, it wasn't. You don't even think like that. I'm sure you've heard that experiment they did with. They said, there's wine. It's a very expensive bottle of wine. How did you like it? And you drink it, and it's like tastes amazing. And then how's this one? This one's cheap. And they drink it. It's okay, you know. And then they're measuring the brain, and actually the receptors with that of taste are actually firing more with the expensive one because you've been framed that way. And so in your experience of it, it did taste better.
Yeah.
It really did.
The placebo.
Yeah, it's really happening because you're experiencing in your head. So when we're framing so strongly for them that you're basically watching the movie or experiencing it before you've seen the movie, that's a different system than the one I'm trying to do, which is just trust me. Come to the movie theater, you know. When I understand the struggle of it, I get it, but I wish the system was geared the opposite way, which is, you know, if you say, hey, you know, Rick, where do you want to go eat? And I did that. I texted you and I said, where should I go eat? You know, you gave me your answers of things, and some of them are, it's just great, go. Right? You didn't tell me it was Italian food. Like that's what I wish it was. The way you did it with me, you just said, food's great. That was it. You didn't even tell me what kind of food.
No.
And so I love that. I wish we were oriented to that, you know, so I don't have to say Chinese food. I don't have to say burger. I don't have to say pizza.
Yeah.
And you come and I can give you different things in a different capacity. I can give you something sweet to start. And you know, so you don't go, why am I, this is crazy. And, you know, and that you're ready for the experience and then you're really present. And that's the way it really was before marketing became the primary driver of cinema.
Are there any other directors who, when you see their name before the title of the movie, you have a real sense of what you're going to see besides you?
I mean, sure, there's Quentin, for sure, right? We all know
Wes Anderson.
Wes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you know, before that was a lot of them, but the color, you're going to hear such a strong accent.
Yeah.
That it's beautiful. You're coming for the accent.
Can you imagine making a movie that was outside of your genre?
Yeah, but I do feel like I have enough room in my genre that it's because it's a mashup of genres to begin with. It's already like it already began with a mashup of drama and scary movie. Mm-hmm. Like we already just started there. It was a mashup to begin with. Mm-hmm. And
how important is scary?
You know, for me, I would like more to define myself, you know, and the way I do see myself is more of a thriller filmmaker, which is basically a more muscular mystery, that's where I am, you know, and then everything else is ornamentation on that. But if you go to, like, if I go somewhere and they're like, when someone goes, oh, I'm a big fan, and then they're with their wife or whatever, and the wife says, oh, I don't watch scary movies. Mm-hmm. And I always go, is that what I do? Yeah. And I go, huh. Because I know this lady would love almost every single one of them, you know, but she has, I'm in a part of the store that's scary movies, and that's that. So I a little bit fight that a bit because it's one dance move, or, you know, in the whole dance, but it's not all of it.
And we think of Hitchcock movies as thrillers, but we never think of them as metaphysical. Mm. So yours tend to have this.
They do have that
otherworldly quality.
Like this conversation we have is an outcropping of the same things that are in the movie. You know, so yeah, you're right. There's that. I don't even say that when I was saying what is it that you do, but it is critical for me to make those. And I would love that lady to not say, I don't like scary movies. As opposed to, you know, you make me feel things, and, you know, in a way of, you know, existential thoughts, and because I can feel you struggling with them, and you make characters that struggle with that, and I struggle with that. You know, that lady would love that, but it's because I'm, you know, she thinks it's in the corner of the store where people get chopped up.
Yeah, it's not Saw.
Yeah, exactly. That's so fun.
How do you think you're most misunderstood?
I think we touched on it a bit, the whole scary thing, because I think the most salient flavor is the one that they call it. So, you know, the subtler flavors are unimportant. The drama, the mystery, the philosophical, those quieter colors get dismissed a bit, and then go, yeah, man, give me some more Tabasco sauce. I love it, you know? And so sometimes it makes me not want to do the Tabasco sauce.
And it's interesting, the idea of turning up the psychological drama and turning down the Tabasco sauce. I'd want to see one of those.
Yeah, but will the audience, because they were framed for the cheeseburger, get pissed?
But do you feel an obligation in that way that they have to hit certain notes?
Well, now you're getting to another part of it, which is I do feel a responsibility. There is a covenant to take that money. When they see my name, there's a relationship, a pre-existing relationship, a date that we've been on together, and they expect a similar date. That doesn't need to be confining, but beautiful. And so how can you kind of do 80% that and then 20% something new, or 70 and 30 or something like that, without it being a complete, like, hey, I didn't get the cheeseburger.
Yeah. Who are your favorite filmmakers, and what is it about each of them that put them on the list?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's endless, honestly. Really, it really just is endless. But, I'll take a few. But, Kurosawa, because of his formality, I just understand why he did everything he does. It's like, and the not moving the camera, and the moving the camera, and his brilliance of blocking, and his trafficking in deep pathos, amongst the plot, and his characters are tortured, and I find them profound. His precision of thought.
What's your favorite Kurosawa film?
Jeez, this again.
It's so good.
There's so many. I have posters up of Rashomon in my office, and High and Low, in my office. So both of those are in my office. So that they're obviously in the pantheon, those two. Ikuru was also one that popped into my head.
Incredible.
Yeah.
How did you learn your craft?
Imitation, and then the kind of failure of imitation, and why that leaves you empty, and what is that? And then in that space, you start to hear yourself.
What's the Foxcatcher story?
I think you're referencing The Village, my movie, The Village.
Is that what it is?
Well, no, but you're referencing the property near our house.
Yeah.
Called Foxcatcher. And so
DuPont.
Yes. So I would pass it every day, and this property was, their family's property was in there, all these acres, and they had their own hospital and insane asylum, and
inside the gates.
Yes. And they, there's a famous story of someone getting murdered in there, and, all this stuff. And so it was just full of wonder for me as I was passing this rusted fence covered in ivy. And now it's a development, it's gone, and, there's all these McMansions there and all of that stuff. But back in those days, we really conjure imagination in me. And I think, the movie The Village came from that fence.
Just driving by. Well, have you worked much with CGI?
Not compared to most. If I can do it in camera, we try to do it in camera. It's just so hard, right? To, again, in that idea of incompleteness, it's so hard to complete something. I found that it's best when you add obscurity to the CGI. So so if you have a dinosaur or whatever, you should have it raining, and it should be at night, and there should be other things to create the incompleteness again.
Yeah. Tell me about your spiritual life.
I would say right now, I'm teetering on a place of wanting to change what it is that I think I am moment to moment, that I'm a group of thoughts that I call myself, that most of those, like all of us, like most of us, has been passively chosen. And I've had the wonderful ability to learn how to not do that when I'm creating. So it's been a respite from this burden of the passive thoughts that have become who I am. And by that means, this is what you think when you're stuck in traffic. This is what you think when you find out someone stole money from you. This is what you think when someone beautiful stands in front of you. So those thoughts. And you can choose to think new thoughts. You can. You have to be aware, because autopilot happens instantaneously. And so I'm trying now. I've been thinking for the last, I would say 6 weeks now, and I feel it changing. Like, the normal version of me may not get everything here that we're doing right now. I would say all these things. I've always been okay at being honest with, when I'm asked, but to be here and feel this kind of fabric here and see you and take this with me forever is the hope, and convey something of reassurance to you of another person on the planet that is grateful and happy. Hopefully there's something that comes across. I'm probably not succeeding, but I want that to be the case from here when you're going, what is it you want now? I want, with all the scars and all the mistakes and everything, I want to go, those were all beautiful lessons to be someone better, and by better, I just mean happier,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to concentrate on my thoughts. And when you do that, everything seems wondrous.
What do you think happened 6 or so weeks ago that started this? Like, how did you get on that?
It's probably, you hear the right thing. It was from a podcast, ironically enough, you have to hear the right thing at the right time, and it goes click. And then you go down, not go down, you go up a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was that you heard?
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name whose podcast it was on, but it was this Dr. Joe Dispenza was talking about thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I'd never heard him before. And then it just went click, the idea when he said, today we will have 90% the identical thoughts that we had yesterday. And I went, oh my God, we're all in the matrix.
Yeah.
We're in our own matrix.
We are.
And I was like, well, I don't want to have the same thoughts.
Yeah.
And then the thought, I do believe that I've always felt like, whatever you wherever you are, whatever your vibration is, you're going to bring that. Because I don't think the universe, that energy or science, the quantum physics of it all says good or bad. I think, so if I'm not feeling great, there's a lot more not feeling great that come my way. If I feel people will betray me, oh my gosh, there's so many more people coming to betray me, And so it's like, if we can resonate in a place of that will come back as well.
How much time do you spend in nature?
We live on a beautiful property. And the reason that I picked that property, because it is one of those old estates that doesn't exist anymore. And thinking of spending the rest of my life there and having, not only did we raise our kids there, but soon, hopefully, grandkids that are walking with them. And maybe if I'm lucky, like my dad, see my great grandkids on that property. And amazing. It would be amazing. Just absolutely amazing. So, and it's wondrous, the trees that we planted, and they're all grown, and it's just absolutely amazing. I want to spend more and more time. Every year I spend more time outside.
Tell me about your movie watching habits.
It's sacred. Nothing's casual at the house, which obviously really is a bummer for my wife and kids. So it's just too meaningful, the images that come into my head. And I'll force myself to sit with them, to just be a part of their lives for a few minutes, but it's literally like getting burned. So when I'm taking it in, it can be anything. I don't have it can be a rom-com. It really can. It just has to be exquisite, and in that, what it is, it has to be, beautiful in and of itself. It's a version of what it is. And so so it's not, when you see my movie collection, that's not snobbery. You have the Bergmans and all that stuff, but you do have everything, because it's, when I was the chair of the Film Festival, I said to the jurors, they said, what are the criteria? How do we do this? And I said, we're not judging genre. So whoever achieved what they set out to do at the highest level, whoever did it the best, that's who wins,
Athenaeum is a new podcast on the Tetragrammaton Network.
Do you know about the connection between Charlie Manson and MK Ultra, the US government's mind control operation? What if everything you thought you knew about the Manson murders was wrong? Join Ayesha Akanbi for a once-in-a-lifetime in-depth conversation with Tom O'Neill, author of the runaway bestseller Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. In this limited deep dive series, Tom O'Neill unpacks his 20-year investigation into the CIA's mind control program, linking it to Charles Manson and the disturbing secrets buried in America's history. From missing FBI files to Hollywood cover-ups, government surveillance, LSD, and the dark collapse of the 60s hippie dream. This is the story behind the story. It's not true crime, it's true chaos. Hear it on Athenaeum, the new podcast on the Tetragrammaton Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts. Truth isn't just stranger than fiction, it's far more dangerous.
Coming soon on the Athenaeum podcast.